The ship came down like a dying star, trailing fire and smoke across the green sky of Varath 7. Marcus Cole gripped the controls with white knuckles as alarms screamed in his ears, and the jungle moon rushed up to meet him. He had survived worse than this, he told himself, though he could not remember when. The impact threw him forward against his harness, and the world became noise and pain and the smell of burning metal. Then silence. Marcus opened his eyes and found himself hanging upside down in the wreckage of his cargo hauler, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He was alive, which surprised him more than it should have. The war between the Valanthi Empire and the Korath Dominion had turned this sector into a shooting gallery, and his little freight ship had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He cut himself free from the harness and dropped to what had been the ceiling, now covered in shattered glass and sparking wires. His body ached everywhere, but nothing seemed broken. He crawled out through a tear in the hull and stood on the soft ground of an alien jungle, breathing air that tasted like copper and flowers. The trees towered above him, their bark purple and their leaves silver, and somewhere in the distance something was howling. Marcus took stock of his situation. His ship was destroyed beyond repair. His communication equipment was fried. The nearest neutral outpost was roughly 80 kilometers to the east, through some of the most dangerous jungle in this sector. He had a pistol with 12 shots, a knife, a medical kit, and enough ration bars to last maybe 4 days if he stretched them. He had faced worse odds, he reminded himself again, and again he could not remember when. He spent the next hour salvaging what he could from the wreckage, filling a pack with supplies, and trying not to think about how far he had to walk. Heard it. Another ship, screaming overhead, trailing the same fire and smoke that his had trailed. It disappeared beyond the tree line, and a moment later the ground shook with impact. Marcus stood very still, watching the column of smoke rise above the silver leaves. It was not his problem. Whoever was in that ship, they were not his responsibility. He had enough trouble keeping himself alive without adding anyone else to the equation. He started walking east. He made it perhaps 200 meters before he stopped. The smoke was still rising, thick and black against the green sky. Marcus cursed under his breath, using words his mother would have slapped him for, and turned toward the crash site. It took him 20 minutes to reach it, fighting through undergrowth that seemed to grab at his legs, and vines that hung like nooses from the branches above. The ship was smaller than his, sleeker, built for speed rather than. It had buried itself nose first in the soft earth, and its back half was completely crushed. He did not expect to find survivors. Then he heard the sound. It was soft, barely audible over the crackling of flames and the groaning of twisted metal. A voice, speaking words he did not understand, weak and filled with pain. Marcus climbed over the wreckage, following the sound until he found her. She was pinned beneath a section of hull plating, her legs trapped and her body twisted at an angle that made him wince. Her skin was pale blue, almost luminescent, and her hair was white like fresh snow. Silver blood leaked from a wound in her side, pooling beneath her in a mirror-bright puddle. She was Valanthi. He had seen her kind before, in spaceports and trading stations, always looking down at humans with those cold violet eyes, always speaking to them like they were addressing particularly stupid animals, considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy. They considered humans to be barely sentient, useful only for manual labor and cannon fodder. And now one of them was dying at his feet. Her eyes opened, those violet eyes, and focused on him with obvious disgust. "Human," she said, and the words sounded like a curse in her mouth. "Yeah," Marcus said, already examining the wreckage that trapped her. "Human, nice to meet you too." "Leave me," she commanded, though her voice was too weak for commands. "I do not require assistance from your kind." "Sure looks like you do." He found a piece of metal that could serve as a lever, and wedged it beneath the hull plating. "I said leave me." "I heard you the first time." He put his weight on the lever and pushed, his muscles screaming with effort, and the plating shifted just enough for him to drag her free. She cried out in pain as he moved her, silver blood smearing across his hands and clothes. Her leg was broken, that much was obvious, bent at an angle that legs should never bend. The wound in her side was deep, probably internal bleeding, definitely infected within hours if he did not treat it. He pulled out his medical kit and started working. "Do not touch me," she hissed, but she was too weak to stop him. "Listen, princess, you can hate me all you want after I stop you from bleeding to death. How does that sound?" Her violet eyes widened. "How did you know?" Marcus paused, bandage in hand. "Know what?" "That I am a princess." He stared at her for a long moment, then laughed, a short bark of disbelief. "I was being sarcastic. Are you actually a princess?" "I am Vaelith Sorenthar, third daughter of the Valanthe Empress, heir to the Silver Throne." "Of course you are." He finished bandaging her side and moved to splint her leg, ignoring her gasps of pain. "Well, Your Highness, we have a problem. The nearest outpost is about 80 kilometers that way, through jungle that wants to kill us, and neither of our ships is flying anywhere ever again." "Then contact my people. They will send rescue. Communications are fried, yours and mine both, so unless you can telepathically call for help, we are walking." She looked at him like he had suggested she eat garbage. "I cannot walk, you fool. My leg is broken." "I know." "Then how do you propose we reach this outpost?" Marcus finished the splint and stood, stretching his back, feeling every bruise and cut from his own crash. Then he knelt with his back to her. "Get on." "What?" "Get on my back. I will carry you." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush mountains. "You cannot be serious," she finally said. "Do I look like I am joking? You are human. Your species is weak and fragile. You cannot carry me 80 kilometers through hostile terrain. Watch me." He reached back, grabbed her arms, and pulled her onto his back before she could protest further. She was lighter than he expected, but still heavy enough that his knees complained. He adjusted her weight, hooked his arms under her legs, and stood. "Wait," she gasped, pain and something else in her voice, something that might have been fear. "Do you have any idea what you are doing?" "Walking east. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I am?" "You told me already, princess. Third daughter, heir to something shiny. Do you know I am a princess?" He started walking, pushing through the undergrowth, carrying a woman who hated his species on his back. "Yeah, I heard you the first time. Then why are you doing this?" Marcus ducked under a low branch, adjusted her weight again, and kept moving. "Because right now, princess, you are not a heir to anything. You are cargo. And I haul cargo. It is literally my job." She had no response to that. They walked in silence, as the green sky darkened toward night, and somewhere ahead of them, 80 kilometers of death waited. Marcus did not look back. He never did. The first day was the worst, or so Marcus thought, until the second day proved him wrong. The jungle of Varath 7 was alive in ways that no Earth forest had ever been alive. The trees moved when he was not looking, shifting their branches to block his path. The vines reached for him like hungry fingers. The air itself seemed to thicken around him, making every breath a battle. And through all of it, he carried the princess on his back. Vaelith had stopped protesting after the first few hours. She had stopped speaking entirely after the first night. Now she simply clung to him, her arms around his neck, her broken leg hanging useless at his side, her fever-hot forehead pressed against his shoulder. The infection had set in despite his best efforts. Her silver blood had turned dark at the edges of her wound, and her skin had gone from pale blue to almost gray. She was dying, and they both knew it. Marcus walked anyway. He walked through the heat of the day, when the green sun beat down through the silver leaves and turned the jungle into a steam bath. He walked through the cold of the night, when the temperature dropped and strange things howled in the darkness. He walked until his legs shook and his back screamed and his vision blurred with exhaustion. Then he rested for an hour and walked some more. On the second night, Veilith spoke for the first time in nearly a day. "Why?" she whispered, her voice cracked and weak. "Why are you doing this?" "I told you, you are cargo." "That is not an answer." Marcus found a fallen tree and sat down carefully, letting her slide off his back to rest against the trunk. He pulled out his water container and held it to her lips. She drank weakly, silver-tinged saliva dripping down her chin. "You have given me more water than you have taken for yourself," she said when she finished. "Logical. Never claim to be logical. Among my people the weak are left behind. It is the natural order. The strong survive and the weak serve their purpose by dying." Marcus took a small sip of water, barely enough to wet his tongue, and put the container away. "Sounds lonely." "It is efficient. Still sounds lonely." He checked her bandages, changed the one on her side that had soaked through with silver blood, and tried not to notice how her hands trembled. "You should leave me," she said, and this time it was not a command. It was something closer to a plea. "You will die if you keep carrying me." "Probably." "Then why?" Marcus sat back and looked up at the sky, at the unfamiliar stars that wheeled overhead, at the 3 moons that hung like lanterns in the darkness. "When I was a kid," he said slowly, "my grandmother told me a story about a man who found a wounded wolf in the forest. Everyone told him to kill it. Wolves are dangerous. Wolves cannot be trusted. But he did not listen. He carried that wolf home and nursed it back to health. What happened?" "The wolf bit him." Veilith blinked. "That is a terrible story. What is the purpose of it?" "The purpose is that he knew the wolf might bite him. He did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. The wolf, being a wolf, did not change what he was. And what was he? Human." She stared at him for a long moment, her violet eyes unreadable in the moonlight. "You are a very strange creature," she finally said. "Yeah, I get that a lot." He helped her onto his back again and started walking. The third day brought new challenges. A river that had to be crossed, chest deep and freezing cold, with Veilith held above the water on his shoulders. A nest of creatures that looked like spiders, but were the size of dogs, which he drove away with fire and screaming. That had to be climbed hand over hand, with the princess strapped to his back, and his fingers bleeding on the sharp rocks. Through it all, Veilith watched him with those violet eyes. She watched him give her the larger portion of their dwindling rations. She watched him stay awake through the night, knife in hand, while she slept. She watched him push his body beyond any limit she had thought possible for his species. "Why do you not rest?" she asked on the third night, when his hands would not stop shaking and his eyes were red with exhaustion. "Cannot. Something is following us, has been following us since the river." "Then let it come. You cannot fight in this condition." "Do not need to fight it. Just need to make it think fighting me is a bad idea." "How?" He smiled, and there was something wild in that smile, something that made her think of the wolves in his story. By being too stubborn to die. Understand him. She had been raised to believe that humans were simple creatures, driven by basic instincts, incapable of higher thought or deeper emotion. But this human had carried her for 3 days through hell. He had given her his water, his food, his protection. He had asked for nothing in return. "What do you want?" she asked suddenly. "What is your price? Everyone has a price. I do not have a price. That is impossible. Do you want money? I can give you more wealth than you can imagine. Do not want money. Political power. I can make you a lord, give you lands and titles. Do not want power. Then what? My body? Is that what this is about? You save the princess and claim her as your reward? Marcus actually laughed at that, a tired, broken sound. Lady, you have been delirious with fever and covered in blood for 3 days. No offense, but you are not exactly my type right now. Want. He stopped walking and turned his head to look at her. And in his eyes, she saw something she had never seen in any Velanthi. Kindness, simple and pure, with no expectation behind it. I want to get us both out of here alive, he said. That is it. That is all I want. Why? Because it is the right thing to do. She did not know what to say to that. Among the Velanthi, everything was transaction. Everything was exchange. Nothing was given without the expectation of return. The idea that someone would suffer and struggle and possibly die for a stranger, for nothing, was beyond her understanding. And yet here he was, this strange human, this impossible creature, carrying her through the darkness. On the third night, Marcus finally collapsed. His legs simply gave out beneath him, and he fell to his knees, then to his side, spilling Valeth onto the soft ground. He tried to get up. His body would not. Rest, Valeth said, dragging herself toward him with her arms. You must rest. Cannot, he mumbled, something following. I will watch. I will keep us safe. You can barely move. Then I will barely move in the direction of anything that threatens us. He tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. She pulled herself close to him and took his hand in hers, her blue fingers wrapped around his brown ones. Sleep, human, she said softly. I will be here when you wake. And for the first time since the crash, Valeth felt something stir in her chest, something warm and unfamiliar. She did not know its name yet. Marcus woke to the sound of Valeth whispering his name. Her hand was over his mouth, her violet eyes wide with fear in the gray light of dawn. They have found us, she breathed. We must go, now. He sat up slowly, every muscle in his body screaming in protest, and listened. At first he heard nothing but the usual sounds of the jungle, the calls of strange birds, the rustle of leaves in the wind. Then he heard it. Footsteps, careful and precise, moving through the undergrowth. Not animals, people. Who? He whispered back. And in her eyes he saw the answer before she spoke it. Assassins. Marcus did not ask questions. He pulled her onto his back and started moving, abandoning stealth for speed, crashing through the jungle like a wounded animal. Behind them, the footsteps quickened. Tell me, he gasped as he ran. Tell me everything. The crash was not an accident, Valeth said, her arms tight around his neck. My ship was sabotaged. There are those in my own court who want me dead. Why? Because I am not like them. Because I have spoken against the old ways. Because I believe our empire should change. Change how? Does it matter now? A beam of energy sizzled past his head, burning a hole through a tree trunk. Marcus ducked and changed direction, weaving between the massive trunks, trying to break their line of sight. Might matter if we survive, he said. I believe we should treat other species as equals, she said. I believe the caste system is cruel and outdated. I believe we have become monsters. Sounds like you made some enemies. I made many enemies, and now they have sent their best to finish what the sabotage started. Another energy beam, closer this time. Marcus could hear them now, 3 distinct sets of footsteps, moving in a formation designed to drive him toward a kill zone. Were good. He had to be better. How many, he asked. 3 at least, Valeth hunters, the elite of our military, each one worth 100 soldiers. Great. He spotted a dense thicket ahead and dove into it, ignoring the thorns that tore at his skin and clothes. The thicket was too thick for the hunters to follow, at least not quickly. It bought them perhaps 2 minutes. "Listen to me," Marcus said as he pushed through the undergrowth. "I am going to find somewhere to hide you. Then I am going to deal with them. You cannot fight them. They are Volanthi warriors. You are one human with a pistol. I am one human who has not died yet. That has to count for something." He found what he was looking for, a hollow beneath a fallen tree, covered in moss and shadow. He lowered Valeth into it carefully. "Stay here. Do not make a sound. If I do not come back, wait until nightfall, and then head east." More than 20 kilometers now. Marcus. It was the first time she had used his name. He paused. "Be careful," she said. "That is an order from your princess." He grinned, and there was that wild light in his eyes again. "Yes, ma'am." Then he was gone, melting into the jungle like he had been born there. The Volanthi hunters moved through the forest with perfect precision. They had tracked prey across 100 worlds, killed targets that entire armies had failed to eliminate. This assignment should have been simple. Find the princess, kill her, make it look like the jungle did it. The human was an unexpected complication, but nothing more. Volanthi hunters did not fear humans. Volanthi hunters did not fear anything. The first hunter died without seeing his killer. One moment he was scanning the jungle with his enhanced eyes. The next, a metal pipe crashed into the back of his skull with enough force to shatter bone. He fell without a sound. Marcus stripped the body of its weapons, an energy pistol and a vibroblade, and disappeared back into the shadows. The second hunter found the body 30 seconds later. He knelt to examine it, trying to understand how a human had managed to kill a Volanthi warrior. That was his mistake. Marcus dropped from the tree above him, driving his knife into the gap between the hunter's helmet and armor. Silver blood sprayed across his hands as the hunter thrashed and died. 2 down, 1 to go. The third hunter was not fooled. She had seen what happened to her comrades, and she knew now that this human was not ordinary prey. She stood in a clearing, weapons ready, senses stretched to their limit. "I know you are there, human," she called out, her voice cold and precise. "I am impressed you have killed 2 of my brothers. That is more than most armies manage." Silence. "Cannot win this. I am faster than you, stronger than you, more skilled than you. Come out and I will make your death quick." More silence. Then a voice from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You know what I learned about your people? Princess told me while I was carrying her through this lovely jungle of yours." The hunter spun, trying to locate the source. "She told me that you fight with logic, with precision, with calculation, every move planned, every attack optimized." A rustle in the bushes to her left. She fired, the energy beam cutting through the vegetation. Nothing. "She told me that you consider emotion to be weakness, that you have trained yourselves to feel nothing, not fear, not anger, not desperation." A sound behind her. She spun again. Nothing. "You want to know what I think? I do not care what you think, human. I think that is why you are going to lose." Like a demon. Not from behind or the side, but from directly in front of her, where she had been looking the entire time. He had covered himself in mud and leaves, hidden in plain sight, waiting for her to get frustrated, to make a mistake. She was faster than him. She got her weapon up, finger on the trigger. But he was not trying to dodge. He crashed into her with all his weight, taking the energy beam in his shoulder, driving them both to the ground. They rolled across the clearing, a tangle of limbs and weapons. She was stronger. She should have overpowered him easily. But he fought like nothing she had ever seen. He gouged at her eyes, bit at her throat, smashed his forehead into her face. He fought without technique, without skill, without any regard for his own survival. He fought like a cornered animal, like a creature that had already accepted death and just wanted to take her with him. Her vibroblade found his side, cutting deep. His hand found her throat, crushing with desperate strength. "You are insane," she gasped. "I am human," he snarled back. Same thing. She twisted the blade, and he screamed. His grip loosened. She threw him off and rose, blade ready for the killing blow. The energy beam hit her in the back. She turned, disbelief in her dying eyes, and saw the princess. Valeth was on the ground at the edge of the clearing, an energy pistol in her trembling hands. The pistol Marcus had taken from the first hunter. The pistol he had left beside her hiding spot, just in case. The hunter fell. Valeth stared at the body, at her shaking hands, at the weapon that had just taken a life. She had never killed before. She had ordered deaths, sanctioned executions, signed warrants that ended lives. But she had never pulled the trigger herself. Marcus, she breathed, and dragged herself toward where he lay, bleeding in the dirt. Hey, he said weakly, nice shot. You are hurt. I noticed. She pressed her hands against the wound in his side, silver blood mixing with red. Why did you leave the weapon? Just in case. You knew you might lose. I knew I might need help. Nothing wrong with needing help. She wanted to cry, but the Volanthi did not cry. Or at least, they had not, until now. The cave was small and damp, hidden behind a waterfall that Valeth had spotted while dragging Marcus through the jungle. It had taken her 2 hours to move him less than a kilometer. Her broken legs screamed with every movement. Her wounds burned with infection, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Not after everything he had done for her. Inside the cave, she propped him against the wall and examined his injuries by the dim light that filtered through the falling water. The vibroblade had cut deep into his side, deep enough to see the red of muscle and the white of bone. But that was not the worst of it. The blade had been poisoned. She recognized the substance, a toxin called Valeth's Kiss, named ironically after an ancient empress known for her cruelty. It was designed to kill Volanthi slowly and painfully over several hours. In a human, with their weaker biology, it would work even faster. Asked, his voice already thin and weak. Bad, that is not very specific. You are dying. He laughed, and the laugh turned into a cough, and the cough brought up blood. Figures, finally find a woman who doesn't think I'm completely useless, and I go and die on her. Do not joke about this. If I do not joke, I will panic, and if I panic, you will panic, and then we will both be useless. She tore strips from her own clothing and bandaged his wounds as best she could. Her medical training had been basic, designed for Volanthi biology, not human. She did not know if anything she was doing would help, but she had to try. Talk to me, she said as she worked. Keep talking so I know you are still alive. What do you want me to talk about? Anything. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your world. Tell me why a human becomes a cargo hauler in the middle of a war zone. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his eyes unfocused, lost in memory or poison or both. I had a wife once, he said finally. Her name was Sarah. She had red hair and a laugh that could fill a room. What happened to her? I happened to her. I was angry all the time back then. Angry at the universe for being unfair. Angry at myself for not being better. I pushed her away until she had no choice but to leave. You have regrets? Everyone has regrets, even cargo haulers. She finished bandaging his side and moved to the wound on his shoulder, where the energy beam had burned through flesh and muscle. There was a daughter, too, he continued, his voice growing weaker. Emily. She would be 12 now. I have not seen her since she was 5. I send money when I can, but money is not the same as being there. Why did you not go back? Because I was afraid. Afraid she would look at me and see the same disappointment her mother saw. Afraid I would let her down the way I let everyone down. Valeth paused in her work. You have not let me down. Give it time. No, I am serious. You carried me through this jungle for 3 days. You fought warriors that should have killed you. You have given me more than anyone has ever given me, and you did it for nothing. Not nothing. What then? His eyes found hers, fever bright but still focused. You needed help. That is not nothing. That is the most important thing there is. She did not know how to respond to that. Among the Valanthi, need was weakness. Asking for help was admission of failure. But this human saw it differently. He saw need as connection, as opportunity, as the foundation of something greater than either of them alone. I have a confession, she said quietly. Is it that you secretly find me charming? Because I already knew that. I am not just a princess. I am the heir, the only heir that remains. My sisters died in the war. My brothers were killed by the same faction that sent those assassins. I am the last of my line. Marcus processed this through the fog of poison. So when you die, your family line ends. Yes. And you ran away anyway. I did not run away. I was trying to reach the neutral zone. I was trying to find allies who could help me reform the empire from outside. That sounds like running away with extra steps. Perhaps, or perhaps it is the only way to change a system that kills everyone who tries to change it from within. He coughed again, more blood, and his eyes started to close. Stay awake, she commanded. You are not allowed to die. That is an imperial order. Bossy. I am a princess. I am supposed to be bossy. But he was slipping away from her. She could see it in the gray that crept across his skin, in the shallow rise and fall of his chest, in the way his hands had stopped trembling, because they no longer had the strength to tremble. She had to do something. She looked at her own hands, at the silver blood that still seeped from her wounds, and remembered something her tutors had taught her long ago. Valanthi blood had remarkable properties. It contained cells that could regenerate damaged tissue, fight infection, even neutralize certain toxins. It was the reason her people lived so long, healed so quickly, survived injuries that would kill other species. But it was also lethal to most other species. The proteins in Valanthi blood were incompatible with non-Valanthi biology. A transfusion would be rejected, violently, fatally, usually. There is something I can try, she said, but it might kill you. I am already dying. What is the difference? The difference is certainty. If I do nothing, you will die slowly over the next few hours. If I do this, you might die immediately. Or my blood might bond with yours. There have been cases, rare cases, where transfusions between species worked, where the blood adapted instead of rejected. How rare? 1 in 10,000. Marcus laughed again, weak and wet. Better odds than I have been playing with lately. This is not a joke. If I do this and it fails, you will die screaming as your body tears itself apart from the inside. And if you do not do it, you die anyway, just slower. He reached up and took her hand, his grip barely strong enough to hold on. Then do it. You do not understand. This is forbidden. If anyone finds out I gave my blood to a human, I will be executed, my entire legacy destroyed. No one has to find out. I will know. Then you will know that you tried, that you did not give up on me the way your people would have given up, that you were brave enough to break the rules for someone who needed you. Tears ran down her face, blue cheeks. She had never cried before. It felt like something breaking open inside her, something that had been locked away her entire life. Why, she whispered, why do you make me feel these things? Because you are more than they made you, he said. Because you are not just a princess, you are a person, and people are allowed to feel. She bent down and pressed her lips to his forehead. Not a kiss of romance, but something deeper, something like a promise. If you die, I will find you in whatever afterlife exists, and I will lecture you for eternity. Now, who is being bossy? She cut her palm and pressed it against his wound, letting her silver blood flow into him, mixing with the red. He screamed. She held him down and kept the pressure steady, and prayed to gods she did not believe in. Outside, the waterfall kept falling, and somewhere in the darkness of his failing body, something began to change. 6 months had passed since the jungle, 6 months since a human cargo hauler had carried a dying princess through hell. 6 months since everything changed. The throne room of the Valanthi Empire was a cathedral of crystal and light, its walls carved from the living rock of the homeworld, its ceiling open to a sky that burned with 3 suns. 1,000 nobles stood in attendance, their pale blue faces turned toward the silver throne at the far end of the hall. And on that throne sat Valith Sorinthar, no longer a princess, but an empress. She wore robes of midnight black, trimmed with threads of silver, a crown of woven starlight upon her white hair. Her broken leg had healed, her wounds had closed, but she carried other scars now. Scars that could not be seen, scars that had changed her into something new. Beside the throne, in a position that had caused scandal throughout the empire, stood Marcus Cole. He was dressed in the uniform of the Imperial Guard, black and silver, to match the Empress, a sword at his hip that he barely knew how to use. But he did not need to use it. His presence alone was statement enough. The transfusion had worked. Against all odds, against all logic, her blood had bonded with his, instead of killing him. The change had been gradual at first, a slight silvering at the edges of his eyes, a slowing of his heartbeat, a strengthening of his muscles. Then more dramatic, his wounds healing faster than any human wound should heal. His lifespan extended by centuries, according to the palace physicians. He was still human, but he was something more now too. Something that had never existed before. A bridge between species. A living proof that the old ways were not the only ways. Not everyone was happy about this. "Your Imperial Majesty," called Lord Vareth from the gathered nobles, his voice dripping with contempt, "we endure this insult to our traditions." The murmur that rippled through the crowd told Valith that Vareth did not speak only for himself. Many of the old guard felt the same way. They had accepted her claim to the throne only because there was no other option. The other heirs were dead. The empire needed stability, and she was, for all her strange ideas, still of the imperial blood. But they had not accepted him. They would never accept him. "Lord Vareth," Valith said, her voice carrying across the throne room with perfect clarity, "you will have to be more specific. To which insult do you refer?" "The human," Vareth spat the word like poison, "standing beside the silver throne as if he belongs there, dressed in the uniform of our sacred guard, flaunting his presence before the greatest families of the empire. His name is Marcus. I do not care what his name is. He is a beast, a primitive, a creature fit only for labor and servitude. And you have raised him up as if he were one of us." The murmur grew louder, nobles nodding in agreement, centuries of prejudice bubbling to the surface. Valith let them speak. She let them voice their objections, their hatred, their fear. Then she stood. The throne room fell silent. "Let me tell you a story," she said, descending the steps of the throne to stand among her people. 6 months ago my ship was sabotaged, and I crashed on a hostile world. I was wounded, dying, unable to walk, and I was hunted by assassins sent by enemies within this very court. She walked through the crowd, and they parted before her like water. "This beast," she gestured toward Marcus, "found me in the wreckage. I insulted him. I ordered him to leave me. I told him that humans were primitive and worthless, and barely sentient." She stopped in front of Lord Vareth. "Do you know what he did?" Vareth said nothing. "Kilometers through a jungle that wanted to kill us both. For 3 days he walked with me, on his back. He gave me his water when he was dying of thirst. He gave me his food when he was starving. He stayed awake through the nights to protect me while I slept." Her violet eyes burned into Varys, and when the assassins came, this primitive, this beast, fought 3 Volanthi hunters with nothing but a pistol and a metal pipe. He killed 2 of them, and held the 3rd long enough for me to finish her. Silence. Absolute silence. He was poisoned in that fight, cut with a blade dipped in Valeth's kiss. He was dying, slowly and painfully, and he could have blamed me. He could have cursed me for dragging him into my war, but instead he smiled and told jokes to keep me from panicking. She turned to face the entire court. I gave him my blood to save his life. Yes, I broke our most sacred law. I merged my blood with a human, and I would do it again 1,000 times. The gasps that rippled through the crowd were like a wave. This man showed me more courage, more compassion, more basic decency in 3 days than I have seen in this court in my entire life. He asked for nothing, expected nothing, demanded nothing. He saved my life because it was the right thing to do. She climbed back up the steps and stood before her throne. Lord Vareth, you asked how long you must endure this insult to our traditions. Let me give you an answer. You will endure it for as long as I sit on this throne, and I intend to sit here for a very long time. This is an outrage, Vareth sputtered. The council will not stand for this. The council will stand for whatever I decide, or the council will be replaced. You cannot do this. I am the Empress. I can do whatever I wish, and what I wish is to build a new empire, one where species are judged by their actions and not their blood. Strength and not weakness. One where we stop pretending that cruelty is civilization. She sat on her throne and looked down at the man who had challenged her. You have a choice, Lord Vareth. You can accept this new empire and find a place within it. Or you can leave. But if you stay and work against me, if you plot and scheme and send more assassins into the night, I will find you, and I will show you exactly how primitive I can be. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Vareth looked around for support, found none, and bowed stiffly. As your majesty commands. He retreated into the crowd, defeated for now. But Valeth knew he would be back. They would all be back. Change did not come easily, but it did come. Marcus caught her eye from his position beside the throne and gave her a small smile. Later, after the court had emptied and the suns had set, and the throne room was lit only by the soft glow of bioluminescent crystals, he came to stand beside her. Nice speech. Did I overdo it? Little bit. The part about finding them and showing them how primitive you can be was maybe too much. I thought it was dramatic. It was very dramatic. I am pretty sure Lord Vareth wet himself. She laughed, and the sound echoed through the empty throne room. She still was not used to laughing. I could not have done this without you, she said. Sure you could have. You would have just been more boring about it. I am serious. You changed me. We could be if we let go of our pride and our prejudice. He shrugged, that familiar human gesture she had come to love. I just hauled some cargo, remember? Yes, and sometimes the cargo becomes an empire. She took his hand, blue fingers intertwining with brown. Stay with me. For how long? Forever. That's a long time. We have a lot of work to do. He looked out at the throne room, at the empty seats where 1,000 nobles had stood, at the weight of an entire empire that now rested on both their shoulders. You know they will never fully accept me. I know. You know there will be more assassins, more plots, more attempts to tear down everything you are trying to build. I know. And you still want me here? She turned to face him, this impossible human who had carried her out of darkness. I carried a wounded alien woman, she said softly, echoing his words from that first terrible night. Do you know I am a princess? He smiled. Yeah, I heard you the first time. Outside, the 3 suns were rising. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Volante Empire was changing. All because one stubborn human had refused to leave a stranger behind.